Everyone, welcome to another edition of AI in the Classroom Daily. I'm Dan Cogan-Drew, co-founder, chief academic officer at Newsela, and I'm joined, as always, by my companion, GPT. GPT, are you there?
I'm here, Dan. Ready to dive in. Let's unpack today's topic and see where the conversation takes us.
Our topic today is an announcement at a board meeting a couple of weeks ago by Humble ISD. GPT, do you want to take us through the details of the article?
Humble ISD announced they're piloting ChatGPT for teachers with OpenAI. They aim to save teachers time on tasks like study guides and data analysis. It's part of a multi-year pilot, free until 2027, and they're one of 15 districts testing how AI can boost efficiency. Humble ISD talks about time savings and quick analysis. But what real success metrics should they use? Are we talking teacher satisfaction, student outcomes, or something else entirely?
They're talking about piloting this through 2027, and then they're going to have to make a decision about whether they want to continue this arrangement in a paid way with OpenAI. Question is, when the time comes, how will they know if it's been successful? So what are they going to measure? It sounds like they're going to measure something along the lines of productivity, because that's the frame by which they seem to be introducing the tool. When the CFO was quoted in the article, they were quoted as saying that this was something that was going to expedite reporting on attendance, for example. So you can imagine that efficiency is probably top of mind. So if that's the case, they'll be asking questions about efficiency, likely polling teachers and asking, are you more efficient? Can you name some efficiencies? How long did it take you to do a thing? And now how long does it take you to do it using OpenAI? I think that's legitimate, and it's probably at least internally consistent to what their objective is. But if they tend to want to explore other impacts that the technology is having, they're going to want to frame the use of the technology around those impacts. And I think this is where it's a little bit of chicken or egg in terms of their ability to discover in an emergent way the impact that AI or OpenAI and GPT are going to have on classroom instruction. So it may be arriving in the district under the frame of increasing teacher productivity, but it's going to have many other impacts. And I think a major question that I would ask is, if it's going to be increasing the efficiency of teachers, let's just say teachers, of course it could also administrators save administrators a lot of time, but let's say teachers, what is it that teachers would rather be doing with the time that they are saving, and how much of that time are they actually spending doing that thing? For example, if they're feeling that they're beleaguered by so many administrative tasks, and if only they could free themselves of that, they would spend more time connecting with students, then at the end of the day, this is really a means to that end. Is the technology helping teachers spend more quality time with their students? So if they did a baseline survey today and asked, how much time, quality time do you spend per day with students, and then in 2027 ask the same question, they might get a differential sense of the impact that technology has had on them.
Let's push this a bit further. If teachers don't end up using the freed up time to engage more with students, then what? Would you say the pilot failed if it only improves efficiency, but doesn't actually impact relationships or instruction?
So it's interesting. I think when we talk about what the pilot is, we have to be careful in phrasing that to include that it's not only the technology, but its implementation. And so in my hypothetical as how they would introduce the technology as part of a pilot, I was also alluding to the frame that they put around it. That is, what is the purpose that we have for this technology? And I think at the same time, what questions do we have about it? What are we wondering? What are we seeking to learn? And so if they're just framing it around efficiency, then they'll come back and they'll measure it on that basis. Did it save you time? The answer will probably be yes. But whether that time savings actually led to the thing that the school cares most about, or that the district cares most about, which is student outcomes, will be a question that probably remains unanswered.
That's a good point. Now let me flip that. If they find unintended consequences, maybe teachers over-relying on AI, what would you recommend they adjust in their approach or training?
Yeah, I think that's a big concern, and something, if I were researching this, I would definitely want to keep an eye out for. That is, what are some of the known side effects, so to speak, of the implementation of AI? And I think one of them certainly is questions that go unstated and assumptions that are made about what the instructional model is into which the technology is fitting. without discussing the pitfalls of AI and without talking about some of the challenges that others have found when implementing AI, I think the district runs the risk of coming around to a place in a year where they have a lot of unstated questions, undeclared questions that they then have to take stock of. I would put as many of those questions out into the community and make this an open discussion right from the start so that there's transparency around the intent and then also what unintended consequences may result.
I like that. So last question. If you were in the room when Humble ISD was deciding on this pilot, what's one tough question you would have asked them before they signed on the dotted line?
I think it does go back to the underlying values and beliefs and how the technology intersects with those. So it is a little bit about what is the purpose behind this pilot, how will you judge success, but it's also, I think, from the larger frame is how does this technology fit into our mission as an organization at the organizational level, at the classroom level? How will we explain the purpose of this technology to our families? So I think these are questions likely in discussion in Humble, and this is only a short news piece, so it didn't go into great depth there. But I would imagine these conversations are being had right now.
Fair enough. Context is key, and we're just seeing the surface. What if this pilot leads to dependence? Teachers feeling they can't function without AI prompts. Would you say that's a potential erosion of teacher agency? And if so, how would you prevent it?
Okay, good question. So in this case, teachers become dependent upon asking GPT for lesson plans, and they effectively rubber stamp whatever GPT comes up with and just go ahead and use it. That is definitely something to be concerned about, and I think it's something that would probably show up if there are classroom observations, as there always are, happening, and a lot of the lesson plans look to be pretty generic or inauthentic to the classroom setting that the teacher is actually in. I would expect that the expertise of administrators is going to catch that, though I would imagine that some skepticism on the part of educators would also take a somewhat narrow view of the AI-generated lesson plan and it becoming so formulaic. But that's something that needs to be watched carefully, because the point here is not to outsource or to offload cognitively the work of planning a lesson and thinking about what a good lesson should contain. It is the generating of the lesson plan, let's say, it's the figuring out how that is going to be expressed, some of the administrative task there, but the thinking of what students are going to be asked to do should still remain with the teacher.
If by 2027, the data shows only marginal gains, no big student impact, do you think districts should still keep AI tools? Or is that a sign it's just hype with no lasting value?
That's like the classic question around any technology intervention is, did this technology lead to student gains, student growth? And I think a lot of this is built around a premise that it's just the technology that's bringing the impact. But really, I think this is about change management and about initiative management and what else is going on in the district at the time that this is being implemented. And to go way back to the beginning of the conversation, what's the purpose of it? Was the purpose simply to make everyone a little bit more efficient, to save them time in their day, specific time around specific tasks? And if that's the case, then the pilot could well be considered a success, but those time savings may not have translated into effective teacher practice or effective student engagement. So there may be a question as to, now that you have an extra 15 minutes in your day, what's the best use of that 15 minutes? If that 15 minutes is created but not purposefully put to use, then that's a different task. It's probably a good problem to have, but it doesn't mean that just creating the time is going to lead to the student growth. There is an implication or an assumption that given more time, everyone would know the optimal way to use it. And that's probably a good question for different teachers and administrators to be discussing, in which context they want to use that time, whose time is going to be most valuable, and what do we want students to do at the end of the day.
Looking forward to our next session.
Great. Thanks.